So one of the things I've been thinking a lot about in thinking about the NFT space and Veve in particular is, what are these next steps? So for Veve, we know they've been announced. Basically, the MCP program is rolling out. The MCP and OUP are kind of merging together. A lot of acronyms there, but that's kind of the OMI token. We know that there might be other mechanisms in terms of the drops. But I wanted to think, as they say in chess, like 2 or 3 moves ahead. What's really going to help us get to that mass appeal they always talk about, or bring in a lot more users? Because I think that although all those mechanics are important, what is really going to make Veve explode? So I had 3 things I want to talk about. Always 3, right? But these are just my thoughts. I don't know. Love to get people's input on it, and I think it's a good discussion to talk about. It's fun, of course, and we'll see where this goes. So one of the first things is, I think that we know that supposedly in the next 2 months or so, the first version of the VeVeVerse will be coming out, and the VeVeVerse is kind of this abstract concept. What is it going to be? I think in a best case scenario, we think of the movie Ready Player One, right? But we know that's a long ways away, both from a technical perspective, like literally hardware, VR goggles maybe, and then of course, I don't think everybody's ready to sit 24/7 in a virtual reality. But is there some, steps along the way that can really bring in more people into the Web3 space, into the NFT space? So let's talk through it. So the first one I have is they've talked a little bit about this, but I think they need to accelerate that, and that is this infamous API. So let me talk to you a little bit about what that is and why I think that's important. So an API is some sort of protocol, specification, whatever you want to call it, they expose publicly, and they say to other computer programmers or other computer systems that this is how we communicate, and this is our standard. So in other words, it's their language. So, some people speak Spanish or Korean or whatever it might be. This is our language. And other computers can then talk to you. So in other words, they could query and say, does this wallet own a Secret Rare Spider-Man? That would be like a simplistic way. We're seeing that a little bit on IMX, and IMX does provide an API, so maybe that's one way to go after it. But of course, Veve could do so much more. And without that type of ability for computers to talk to each other, then it's all kind of by hand. And we see a lot of that with like Omi Daily Burn and some of the other people that are looking through people's wallets. You're seeing some of it automated because there are these Twitter bots that are able to look at things that are sold automatically, and then they tweet them out. So some of this is going on, but I'm talking about even more advanced stuff than that. Obviously, knowing if this particular thing is a wallet is kind of like level 1. I realize some of this stuff is on the blockchain, so it's already exposed, but they could show other kind of business rules that maybe are not shown there. Maybe that this particular token is going to be burned in such a way, and then this is going to provide for this. There's a lot of different kind of business mechanics that they could now implement and may implement that could be exposed through an API. So other computer systems, not just people, but computer systems could know that, and then intelligently they could build other computer systems based on that knowledge. So why is that important? I think that when you're looking at an ecosystem that is, exploding and becoming super popular, you can't do it all your own. You can't do it yourself. And as many resources as Veve may have, and perhaps they'll raise, hundreds of millions of dollars more and have hundreds and hundreds of developers, I think where they want to go, they simply don't have and will always have limited resources. And so what you want is, in a best case scenario, you have smaller companies, startup companies that look at Veve as kind of the source, and they have an idea that maybe Veve hasn't thought up, and they build their company based off of that. And that's where you see these multiples of different people interacting with your products, using them for even their own business or to create new ideas. Now, you have seen some of this. So a perfect example would be like the Veve 500. So you had Metaverse Life. He loves all the NFTs. He loves the IP, and he created this, incredible video that was lots of fun. So that would be a good example of somebody who's done something beyond what Veve can do. And I just think that the API at a technical computer level will allow other people to build things that we haven't seen yet. So I think that is an important piece because, once again, the question that everybody says, and I'll say this a lot in this video, is, these NFTs are great, but what do you do with them? I think there are ideas that people have that we don't even know of, and by exposing that API, it lets them be more creative. Okay, the second thing that I have is, we've seen a little bit, so it's the back cowls, and we've seen a little bit with the VeVe card, but I do think they need to somehow do a way better job with pairing the NFTs or groups of NFTs with exclusive events, or kind of what I call first looks. So one of the great things that VeVe has, of course, is these incredible IPs, and we know the fans are, and I was just thinking of this because, Star Wars Celebration in London is happening right now. Everybody wants to see the first look of each of these trailers and whatnot. It would be very easy for them, not easy, I should say, but possible for them to, if you were there, you could get exclusive access to different meetings with the different actors, or see trailers first, or something like that if you had specific NFTs. I think, they're already working with some of the licensors to understand that, and obviously they are large companies, so they might not move as quickly, but VeVe explaining to people that not only are we going to sell this NFT, but you need to provide these additional, first look, special events, whatever it might be. They're enhancing their brand by having, more touch points, with their most rabid fans, if you want to call it that. I think one thing that, is a thing that they're obviously looking at is revenue. And so if they can have these, obviously those huge celebrations generate revenue, and also they generate interest in their IP. This is just an extension of that. And depending on how many NFTs and other things they sell, it could be, as we know, really, really lucrative. You could be, making tons and tons of money in addition to these other events that these different large IPs are already putting on. Number 3. So number 3 is a little bit more ambiguous, but let's talk through it a little bit. So it's this kind of combination of enabling more creative content people, kind of like myself. I just make videos on VeVe and comics, but really now, as you know, like 90% of my videos, even more higher than that, are on VeVe and NFTs. But how do you help content creators so that that ecosystem continues to grow? Because that is well beyond your own marketing department. So some of that they already do, I think, is they provide updates on a monthly basis, and that's kind of like fodder for us content creators, because we're watching that, and then we're kind of quote unquote reporting on that. But there's more than that too, and that's enabling us to get even more kind of quote unquote raw video, or different types of content that we can integrate into our videos or into our shorts that will assist us in making content. So that's kind of like level 1. But level 2 is this VeVeVerse element. The VeVeVerse itself will, once it's in whatever kind of mechanism it is, into virtual reality goggles or whatever we have, will allow us to make more content. But the VeVeVerse itself then has to assist content creators and other, I could just say other creative people. So they should make it, and they've talked about being able to have other third-party NFTs in the VeVeVerse, which I think is a great step. But it's more than that. It's allowing it to have an ecosystem that is third-party friendly. So let me give an example. So Apple obviously makes their phones. They made the App Store, which is built for third parties to integrate in their, whatever cool idea that they have. And so that only expands and has really expanded the Apple ecosystem. And that's what I think they have to do. So, I mean, you can extend it to everything. So in the VeVeVerse, can you have your store? Would you have a store like the App Store? Can you sell NFTs? Maybe you can sell other things. But having that capability, or those kind of plugins that allow third parties to work within there, be creative, I think is really going to be important in extending it well beyond just, it's one thing if you have your vault and you're showing people and you allow people to see it. It's another thing to allow third parties to be creative within there. And that's where we don't know where they might go, because we don't, just allowing it to be open-ended is really where we'll see the expanding and acceleration of people wanting to go to the VeVeVerse. E-commerce, I think, is the very low-hanging fruit. So in other words, you have your own store, you can sell specific NFTs maybe at a smaller I don't know, something like that. But this is where the paradigms, we don't understand where they're going to go, and that's where it's really exciting because it's something that's never been done before. So for example, YouTube allows anybody to make content, put it on there, and we didn't know that when it started, that because in the beginning people just put cat videos on there, right? We didn't know that it was going to eventually evolve to a point where people can have their entire career on YouTube. They can sell their own videos, create their own brand. Now shorts are a completely different type of video. Obviously TikTok has really made those popular, but that's even another different type of element that we haven't seen. So I think that the VeVeVerse and how it will change everything, obviously has NFT pieces, but they need to make it flexible enough that third parties can be creative. We don't know what those are, but we'll be pretty interested to see what people do. So, I mean, I think the next steps of Veve are going to be very interesting, but overall, the three things that I documented is really to open it up to allow people to be creative. And that's where I think that they'll really see a big boost, and those additional third parties are going to be what helps Veve become have a much bigger mass appeal. All right, one last thing, and that is that the Sleeping Comics version 2 hats have come out. I think about 75 of them have sold. There's 125, so there's about 50 of them left. If you're interested, you can contact me directly, or you can go to VeveRank.com. There's a button on there on the website. Either way, they're about $35, and depending on where you live, there's different amounts for the shipping. If you have any questions, you definitely can contact me. And as I've said before, 80% of the profits from those hats are going to a nonprofit, so that's great. I thank you all for watching. Take care. I'll talk to y'all soon.